population? This is another episode of Durag with the Cape Road with your host, me. You know, I'm just here to discuss stuff with a Durag on, the Cape Road. Right now I'm rocking this Coogee Supreme Durag. I don't have any sponsors, so they ain't paying me. Shout out to Dipset. I'm from Harlem, so, I gotta throw that on. I think that we are living in a time where, well, I don't even like that beginning. We are living in a time where, but I feel like our existence is kind of based on what we do to escape our own realities. Because for what I've gathered, everything is subjective. I mean, there are objective things like death and, certain things that are what they are. But even that, people still will argue death or reincarnation. If you look at like science or what is it, thermodynamics, with energy is neither created nor destroyed, it just is. And then if you look at this, I think it's physicists that was saying that everything is vibrations. And if you tie that into like the mystical side of things, like the Alan Watts kind of thinking people, they're like, yo, so vibrations, bros. Let's do some acid. You start to realize, like, pretty much everything is subjective, but even with that, we still try to find ways out of it. So, for instance, for myself, like, I really like taking in information. Like, I just like learning about stuff. And since actually, it all started as a kid, and it would be with history stuff. I just like learning about history, learning about politics, learning about geopolitics, learning about socioeconomics, learning about all that stuff. And as I've learned more and more, it's become super heavy. So sometimes I like to escape from it. Like, even with doing this, or just with all that's going on now in the world, like I'm taking in so much information, I'm like, I need to find something to laugh at, because this is a lot. Like, this is an overload of information. An overload of things that I do like and do enjoy, but I need to separate myself from it.
This makes me want to burn this motherfucker down.
And I see that in a lot of other people with finding a form of escapism. Well, it's escapism at its core, but finding something to get you away from what you are currently in and dealing with. Because if you allow what you've accepted as your life and your reality to just pile on you, you will probably drive yourself mad. So you need to find a way, not necessarily out of the matrix, so to speak, but, just to decompress for a second. So like me, I like randomly watching people play video games, or like just watching funny videos or whatnot. Definitely watching videos where people are talking over animals, or just talking over just funny situations. Excuse me. But what I've noticed with as a society, with our need to escape from whatever reality we've chosen to go, whatever path we've chosen to go on, corporations and businesses or whatnot use that to their advantage, because that's an emotional kind of thing. It's like to get away from what you do and find something you like to do or love to do, or just something that just like brings you some modicum of joy. They found ways to sell you on that, and that's pretty wild when you think about it. Like, you could be somebody that's, I don't know, it doesn't matter what kind of life you live, they just find a way to sell you things. And it's like both hands wash the other, one hand wash the other, sorry, both wash the face. They can put you in that situation because, for the most part, I would imagine everybody, like, depending on your life, whether you're able-bodied or whatnot, or just have the ability to and privilege to work a job or whatever have you, have a career. Like, you have something that you're set in and that you do, and the system makes money off of that. And then that thing that whatever you do, whatever you're involved in, you want to decompress and move away from, they make money on the back end when you buy like Xboxes and PS5s, and you buy sneakers and shoes and coats and trips and stuff like that. They just like, we got to get you every which way because, one hand wash the other, both wash the face. I think that, that makes sense, but it can become a thing where it can become a thing where you can see with the way in which they overwhelm you with certain information, it causes a panic within you, like a fear kind of response, because the greatest weapon is fear. Because you don't need to do anything but tell somebody something, because somebody's brain can just take you on a path. And since humans are animals, and really we're like the weakest, most dangerous animal of them all, because realistically a lot of stuff out there can kill us, like mosquitoes, everything can kill us like super fast, but we can also make like nuclear bombs. But so that panic, that kind of like those intrusive thoughts that people be having, and that like kind of like fear and paranoia that some people walk around with, is like pretty much built into our psyche, like evolutionarily speaking, if that's a word. But they play on that. So for instance, like you'll see the news, like this happened. There's a bomb blown up, like what's going on in Israel and Palestine, or anytime they want to talk about Chicago, or just, your local news, when they're talking about anything that's happening, paranoia, like it makes you want to go buy guns and go do this and go do that. But realistically, you don't necessarily have to, but they would really want you to, because that puts money in their pockets, because they're selling you on that fear, and it works out in their favor. And like, there was a woman, I think it was in the 90s in Sarasota, Florida. I think her name was Christine Chubbuck. Excuse me if I got this lady's name wrong, rest in peace, ma'am. But she was a news anchor for the Florida news station, and she was like loving her job, doing her thing. She dealt with things personally, with her mental health personally, since she was a child, but she, was doing her thing with her job. And from what I understand, as she was moving up in her job and getting awards and stuff like that, her bosses came to her telling her like, yo, you need to report on more like bloody kind of things that are going on, like war stuff, violence, or just all the bad stuff, because if it bleeds, it leads. Like, people like watching car crashes type of situation. So she wasn't really for that, but she did it because she still loved to report the news, and it was something that she was about. And it sunk her into a deep depression because, again, like I said, selling fear, and the fact that she was so consumed by the reality that she chose to be in with this job and staying there and doing her thing, she had no release. There was no escapism kind of was a fleeting idea to her. This was her life. This consumed her, so she was dealing with what she was dealing with, and it put her in a position where she ended up doing a weird interview with I think it was a coroner or something like that, like trying to figure out what was the best way to delete yourself with a pistol. Like, where should you use said pistol when you look to, delete yourself or what have you. And they found it kind of weird, but, he told her whatever have you. And she had been talking about wanting to possibly do that to herself for a little bit, but everybody kind of shooed it off because they have their own realities that they're dealing with. And when they are escaping what they deal with, hearing somebody else's reality is not a part of your fantasy. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm working a job that's stressing me out, and when I leave said job, I want to go get a beer or want to go whatever, and you're telling me about your problems, I hear you, but I may not be listening. And that's what was happening to her. And so she eventually came to work one day with a pistol and did the news broadcast and told them, in short, this news station, loves to see blood and guts and what have you. Well, I'm going to give you something that you'll never forget. And she deleted herself on air. I think this is in 1993. And what's sad and also astounding, if that's a good word for it, but what's sad about the situation is that she chose to do that because she was plagued by the reality that she was in, and this was her way of being able to remove herself from it and also put the reality that you want to place on everybody else in their face, like in the faces of the people that want her to do it, in the face of the viewers that are consuming this content. And what's astounding about it is that from that, nothing changed. The reason why I even know about this is because there's a movie that's dedicated to it. So they thought to make entertainment about this situation rather than really step back and look at the human psyche. Like, what are we really doing here? Why are we thinking that the best way to capitalize on people is use their emotions against them? Like, I was listening to a breakdown of this, the godfather of propaganda / marketing, because marketing and propaganda are one and the same, of Edward Bernays. This dude is like the godfather of marketing and propaganda. He was commissioned by, I think, was it Roosevelt or Eisenhower, whatever president was during World War I. I'll forget, whatever. But he was used to hype Americans up about joining World War I. Then from there, he was used to sell many of products, one being bacon. I'm Muslim, so I don't eat bacon, but I mean, even before that, when I was a young kid, I kind of stopped eating bacon after maybe 15, 16, on a constant basis, and then really stopped once I converted or reverted, alhamdulillah. He was commissioned by a bacon company to be able to get it in people's diets because there was a lot of supply but not enough demand. So he basically he talked to his doctor about a healthy diet and how calories are burned and stuff like that, and got them to drum up and got them to agree to something that scientifically didn't make any sense, but at the time, since they didn't do the science on it, it made sense. Got other doctors to give in on it, and got over 5,000 doctors, something like that, to agree that you need a hearty breakfast to be able to get through your day, even though, Americans at the time wasn't eating hearty breakfasts like that. You was eating something that just got you through the day, not 1,001 calories. And that he's the godfather to the fact that, a lot of people tend to eat big. If you can afford it, if you have the privilege to afford that, tend to eat big breakfasts thinking you need a lot when you don't. It's just marketing. Bill Hicks is one of my favorite comedians. Later in his comedy run, he passed away from cancer, closer to nearing his end of his life, he became very, very preachy, so to speak. He just, after, I forgot which, was it David Koresh? It was whichever code thing that the U.S. government pulled up on and set the house on fire. They actually killed kids, but then they covered it up. But he got really into all of that stuff. But he said a lot. There was a lot of dope things, but he would just get on stage, and some of it wasn't even funny anymore. He was just speaking his mind. And he said that the earth is the third mile from the sun. They're constantly trying to sell you things. So if you look up somebody like Edward Bernays, you'll realize they're constantly trying to sell you things. He's one of the reasons for the department malls, because he was big on, and if you look up today, on selling you things for appearance, not for utility. Like, and when you think of that logic, think about your iPhone. Like, I'm using an iPhone right now. I remember when iPhones first came out that they used to brag about its like megahertz, its whatever. Like, they used to brag about the inner workings of the iPhone, like how technologically advanced it was, and how you should like figure out how to use this and how cool it will be for you to have basically a supercomputer in your hand. And then they realized that, oh, a lot of these people are just like using this for like vanity because the price tag was a lot. So that already kind of that already kind of plays into the status symbol thing. So it's like they worked with the thought that, oh, y'all don't really care about the technological advances of this, of the modern phone. I mean, I don't really care about this piece of technology like like we thought you would. And rather than us keep harping, the facts at you and try to get you more into this, let's just play into your vices. Let's just play into your emotions. Now you see iPhone commercials that just talk about taking pictures. Like, that's all they talk about is how great the camera is. And, this camera's really good, but how great the camera is. Like, you don't have those commercials anymore. Like, it's because marketing is just about playing to your emotions. You are buying things for no other reason. Not, for the most part, you're getting things to make, sustain yourself. But a lot of the other extra stuff, especially in the States that we get, is just cause. But when you really think about it, like, why though? Like, who is this really benefiting? Like, yeah, you can have all this and all that, but for what though? You know what I'm saying? Like, they play into your emotions. Like, that realities that we choose to abide by, we tend to look to escape regardless of how heavy it is on our emotions, just because, you want to do something different. So if you like, whatever you do, you want to go find something different to do, but they realize that and they sell you on stuff. Like, your phone is constantly listening to you. Like, I remember, I think it was Chuck Schumer, or one of them politicians in New York, that was trying to get a bill passed. This is a little bit after I left New York City, trying to get a bill passed to stop companies from being able to track your phones while you're in the mall, even when they're off. Because your phone is constantly on. Because we live in a big business. Like, yeah, you can be worried about, them checking your phones or checking your laptops or whatever for whatever nefarious things they want to do. But honestly, they just want to sell you stuff. Like, the criminal stuff is secondary. Like, that happens. But they just want to sell you things, like, all the time. They always want to sell you stuff. It's pretty, it's not mind-blowing really at this point, but it just realizing that what we are as a people is being played against us just for monetary gains is wild. Because humans are emotional, communal creatures for the most part. And what I mean by emotion, I mean like react off emotion. Like, logic, yes, we do use logic, but if you aren't like completely in tune with yourself, completely aware of you at all times, a lot of your reactions are simply off of emotion. And that gets played against you at all times. Like, you might think something is a coincidence, but there could be some synchronicity to it. Like, whatever, I think I said the word right. And it's just a lot of marketing, bro. They're just trying to sell you stuff, man. And even now, I mean, I'm talking to you or whatever, I got on these clothes, whatever I got on, but I'm not making money off of this, but I guarantee you some way, somehow, something's going to get marketed to me or maybe to you if you click this video or even swipe by it. Because that's just how it works, man. They're just trying to get money. and more money than everybody else because whatever, they just people. Some people are weird, but you know, nevertheless, keep the do-rag on and keep the capes up. Peace.